Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we have the final that never happened. Magnus Carlsen versus Wesley So. Can Wesley make it 3 matches in a row beating Magnus? Well, today Magnus made a big statement, destroying Wesley in their first game in just 23 moves. Let's just take a quick look at the game. We have e4 by Magnus, e5, knight f3, knight f6, a Petrov defense, knight to c3, knight c6, transposing now into the 4 knights variation. And here a4, bishop b4 by Wesley, and bishop d3 by Magnus. This bishop to d3 is very interesting, and you usually see it on the reverse side where black plays this move in response to the Ruy Lopez with bishop to b5, and where they go bishop to d6. Here d6 is played by Wesley, castles by Magnus, castles by Wesley, and knight to d5, asking where this bishop wants to go and if you want to take here right away. Wesley decides not to take. He goes bishop to c5. Magnus plays c3. He wants to trap this bishop with moves like b4 and a5. So Wesley plays a5 to give the bishop some room to play just in case. Bishop to c2, and here Wesley took on d5, pawn takes, and knight to e7. Now there's a lot of pressure on this pawn on d5 with the knight, and it's not very easy to protect it. So Magnus goes for this knight to g5, hitting the h7 square with both the knight and the bishop. So Wesley goes h6, and here Magnus played the intermediate move d4, attacking the bishop. The bishop goes to b6, and Magnus played this very interesting move, knight to h7, attacking the rook on f8. But now, when this rook moves to e8, where is this knight going? The knight is trapped. Wesley's just going to go f5. This bishop is no longer protecting your knight. And on the next move, we're going to capture this knight. So what did Magnus have in mind? Well, he wanted to sacrifice his knight on f6 with knight to f6 check. The pawn took, and this was Magnus' idea. He wanted to play queen to h5. And here there's a lot of nasty checkmating threats. So black went ahead, played e4, blocking this diagonal for the bishop in the meantime. Now, if bishop takes on e4, then you can go ahead and play f5, attacking the bishop with tempo and take your pieces out that way. Magnus went rook to e1. He wants to keep the tension as long as possible. And now this rook is ready to join the party as well with rook to e3, rook to g3, or even rook to h3 in some situations. f5, solidifying this pawn on e4. Now this bishop is completely stuck here, but that's going to open up now lines for this other bishop to attack via the taking on h6, and even using the g5 f6 square, since now there's a lot of weaknesses around the dark squares around the black king. Magnus went ahead, took on h6 with the bishop, knight took on d5. Here, notice something. This knight went to the middle of the board. He could have stayed around the king with knight to g6. But this also loses to bishop to g5, attacking the queen. If the queen moves to d7, for example, then you just go bishop here, queen to h6, queen to g7, checkmate. You cannot prevent this. So you cannot go for this. So after bishop to g5, you have to go rook e7, but you go bishop f6 again with the same threat. You want to go queen here and queen there. So the queen comes to f8, and you go rook e3. Now you want to swing this rook to the h file, threatening checkmate on h8. So you play f4, and when this happens, you go rook takes on e4, and after rook takes, bishop takes. You cannot prevent bishop from taking on g6, pawn takes, queen takes. You're going to have to go queen g7, queen takes g7, checkmate. So this was not possible. Instead, after bishop takes on h6, Wesley took on d5. Bishop to g5 anyway by Magnus, f6, but now there's a very important moment here, bishop to b3, pinning this knight here to the king. In the game, Wesley went for c6, but other moves will also lead to checkmate. After bishop to e6, for example, you go queen g6 check, king to f8, bishop h6 check, king to e7, queen h7, and after bishop f7, you can take here. This bishop is pinned. If the rook comes to f8, well, you're just going to take there, and you're going to be up material. You're going to win this game. Another move that could have been played instead of c6 after bishop to b3 was to take the bishop on g5, but this also loses after queen to g6 check, king f8, you go bishop takes on d5, threatening checkmate already on f7. So bishop covers on e6, you take, and after rook takes, queen takes, you're just going to be up on exchange. These pawns are going to drop. This rook is going to come to e3, join the party via either g3 or h3. This is going to lead to checkmate as well. So after c6, Magnus just went ahead and played rook to e3, taking advantage of the fact that this knight cannot take this rook because you're pinned, and this rook is ready to come in very quickly to h3 and to g3. So king to f8 by Wesley, queen g6 by Magnus, or again taking the advantage of the fact that this knight cannot take because it will be checkmate on f7. Here, Wesley goes for f4, preventing this rook from coming to h3. Another move that could have been played instead of this was to go for f takes on g5, but after bishop takes on d5, pawn takes, the rook comes to h3, you cannot prevent rook there, rook back, and checkmate. So f4 by Wesley, preventing this rook from coming to the h3 square, but Magnus here goes for bishop h6, king e7, queen h7, and here Wesley resigned because it is mate in 1. After king to e6, the rook would have taken on e4 with checkmate. A beautiful game by Magnus with a very deep idea, this knight to h7, sacrificing himself on f6. Hope you guys enjoyed the game, and we have 3 more to go. Let's see if Wesley can come back. If not, Magnus will win today's match. Very nicely done by Magnus today. Stay safe, have a great day, show respect to your opponent. See you on the next video.